With all of the talk that's going around about 1D&D right now, it reminded me that I've never made a video talking about the top 5 homebrew rules that I use in my games of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. So, let's jump into it. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Garmin. This is the Storycraft Society, and this week we are going to be going over the top 5 homebrew rules that keep coming back, reoccurring in all of my games of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. This is inspired by hearing all of the playtest rules that are coming out for 1D&D, and it just kind of reminded me that I've never really made a video talking about this, and obviously I believe in my 5 homebrew rules a lot. And they're why they keep happening over and over and over in my games. I am gonna put 2 disclaimers on this video. That's right, two disclaimers before we go into this. The first one is, I feel like this goes without being said, but these are the rules that work for my table and my group of players. They aren't going to be perfect solutions for everybody, and I encourage all of the DMs and GMs out there to find the homebrew rules that make your group happy. Or if no homebrew rules at all make your group happy, then play with absolutely no homebrew rules. Disclaimer number 2, I don't know how many of these rules are exploitable or not. My type of Dungeons & Dragons is not the type where I try to look at the rules and find the way to make my character as awesome as possible at first level. To me, it's a storytelling game where my goal at the end of the day is to tell a cool story. If you want to leave it in the comments below about how rule number 2 is going to allow my characters to use this feat and then this class combination to break my game and I'll never be able to have a monster that can defeat them with it, please do that, and I'll definitely find it interesting while I read it. But these rules enhance the flavor of the game to me. It enhances the story, and to me, that is the goal here. Okay, so I actually have a disclaimer 3 that I totally forgot to mention in the video, and it's really important that I do mention, and that's that I'm not actually 100% sure where I got a lot of these rules from, but I did not come up with them. I might have edited them or tweaked them to make them fit the way that I run my game, but I'm sure I picked them up from places like Matt Koval, Matt Mercer, Dale Kingsmill. All of them have been huge inspirations to the way that I DM. Also, countless other people that I've played with who have made suggestions over the years. I don't want to take credit for any of these homebrew rules or act like this is something that I came up with in a vacuum. So, back to the video. Let's jump into the first one, which actually isn't going to be number 1. I'm actually going to use a quick little bonus tip that's not part of the actual 5. So my first bonus tip, I don't think is a homebrew rule. I think that there's rules for it out there somewhere, and everybody knows the basic version of it. But I like to use this, and I use it frequently in my games. Using alternate abilities with skill checks. Skill checks are my favorite part of the game, and so therefore I think that there should be more flexibility with both toolkits and skills. I'll use the simple example that we all know and love, which is a strength-based intimidation check. Instead of having to use your charisma, I think that a player who is really strong can use their strength score to enhance. It allows them to flex and show off how powerful they are, but there's more interesting versions of this. Like, could someone make an intelligence-based stealth check? They are trying to watch and find the specific place where the guards always turn and look the right direction so that they can sneak past. So instead of making a dexterity-based stealth check, the wizard makes an intelligence-based stealth check. Feel free to pair different abilities with skills, and you get some really flavorful options that come out of it. All right. That was a bonus tip. Now on to number 1. I thought it would be fun if I gave you a little dramatic reenactment of each of these rules. That way you can see them in motion. So we're gonna go with the first one. Bonus action to drink a potion. Dramatic reenactment. This is funny. Now that you've looked at that, I really like the idea of moving the game forward faster by drinking potions as a bonus action. You still need an action to feed a potion to another character. Rule number 1, bonus action to drink a potion yourself. Rule number 2 comes in at I ignore multi-classing requirements. I don't see why, if someone wants to have a negative charisma, they can't choose to be a bard.
I'm a bard with no charisma, and I wrote this song. I'm a bard with no charisma, and I wrote this song.
Now, this is one that I'm absolutely sure that there are people who will blow up the comments saying, well, you can multi-class into rogue and just automatically get expertise and all of that side of the game. And you are correct, but I am just absolutely blessed with a group of players that don't think about the game that way. And I end up getting so many opportunities with them to make those kinds of choices, even though they might be suboptimal for their character, but it helps to tell the story better. It all comes down to me not seeing classes as an actual job description, but seeing them just as a collection of abilities that let us flavor how our characters interact with the world. And then I encourage my players to decide, is that collection of abilities a good mechanical representation of the things that your character can do? And that just bubbles over into multi-classing requirements. Side note, upon having a conversation about this with one of my players, they pointed out to me that I actually probably wouldn't do that anyway. I would just work out some kind of a feat or story award that my players could acquire to get them that thing without having to multi-class. But I still stand by it. I think that multi-classing requirements are nonsense unless you're trying to safeguard the game from being power gamed, which is fair, but just not my group of players. So for rule number 3, I will pull forward this wonderfully large D20. You will notice that on a D20, there is a beautiful side with a 20 on it. And then there is the opposite side, which has a little 1 on it. And that is bad times. So what homebrew rule number 3 is for me and my table is that we back up our 20s and we back up our 1s. What does that mean? Well, let's first look at the dramatic reenactment. So I thought about this one, but I just could not come up with a funny skit to do in the beginning of this one. So, as recompense to you, the viewer, for your wasted time in this particular section of the video, I provide a few seconds of silence to honor my great failure. I'll do better next time. And what a dramatic reenactment that was. When a player rolls the die and bang, it lands on a natural 20. I take that as an opportunity to not only let them critically succeed, but I also allow them to re-roll that natural 20. On a 17, 18, or 19, that 20 now has a super effect. That super effect can be something that they come up with that they would like to have happen, or I could come up with something that's advantageous. Perhaps not only do they just double their damage from their natural 20, but they also knock the target prone, or they could get a free swipe at the person beside them as their sword cuts through the first person into the second person. There's all kinds of things that you can come up with flavor-wise for that 17, 18, or 19 on the second roll of the D20 after a natural 20. What happens if they roll another natural 20, you ask? Well, that starts into another reroll. So if you roll a natural 20 followed up by another natural 20, that would result in you rolling a third time. And if you get a 17, 18, or 19, that's what we call a super crit, which would mean that some super mega awesome thing could happen. And this is now a chain reaction that could just go and go and go. I love the idea of this game is all about telling stories. So if it's the final boss fight against the dragon at the very, very end of the campaign, and the ancient red dragon is asleep in their lair, and the rogue rolls 6 natural 20s in a row, I am totally okay with them finding the exact perfect place to place their dagger and deal with that dragon in one strike. And the reason that I'm okay with that is because my players will tell that story forever. And that's why we play this game. It is very unlikely, but boy, would that be an amazing story. Now, that natural 20 has another side. And that side is a 1. You can see where I'm going with this. If you roll a natural 1, you also have to back that die up. 4, 3, or 2 as your backup, that now becomes a extra failure. So not only does your attack auto miss, but that's now when you huck your sword across the room, or you find a way to end up being knocked prone. Your swing leaves you exposed and they kick out from underneath your leg and down you go. If you roll another natural 1, this can cause a terrible spiral to happen. I love this because it brings a depth to crit successes and crit failures that I just think are very fun and evocative when they happen. And actually, I forgot to mention, but super important to mention, all of these rules that I'm going to mention apply to the bad guys as well as the good guys. If I let my heroes have bonus action potions, then my bad guys have bonus action potions. If I let my heroes get a super crit by rolling 2 natural 20s and then a 17 in a row, then I'm going to let my bad guys have that opportunity as well. So the sword swings both ways on all of these rules. Okay. Rule number 4, and I did place these in kind of ascending order of most exciting, I think. Hopefully you agree. But rule number 4 is going to be how I handle flanking at my tables. Let's go to the dramatic reenactment. So the alternate rule according to 5e is that flanking gives you advantage. That's when you're on one side and your ally is on the other side of a bad guy. You can cut a line straight through him. That would give both you and your ally advantage on that bad guy. The way that I like to handle flanking is I consider that instead of advantage on your attack roll, it is a +2 bonus to your attack roll. So why do I like the +2 bonus better than I like advantage? Well, the first thing is it doesn't make things like Fairy Fire unnecessary. Because if you have flanking, then Fairy Fire is only good for ranged. It doesn't help your melee characters, particularly if they know to get into those good positions. Also, it makes things like the poisoned condition more punishing because it doesn't cancel out disadvantage. To me, those are the two anchoring points. It doesn't remove the awesomeness of things like Fairy Fire, and it makes certain effects more punishing. That +2 bonus just gives you a static small bump to your flanking attacks. All right, 5 is the big one, and this is the one that I'm the most nervous about putting out onto the internet because I think that I could get a lot of flack for this one. So we'll see. I, in my games, allow forced opportunity attacks. So let's go to the dramatic reenactment of this one.
You're right.
Entertainment. So, what does that mean, a forced opportunity attack? Well, currently, as the rules are written, if I take my Thorn Whip and I grab the bad guy and pull them away from my ally does not get to make an opportunity attack against that particular bad guy. I've never understood from a thematic standpoint why that makes any sense. If they move away without disengaging, my ally would get the attack of opportunity. If I am forcing them to move with something like Thorn Whip, then why wouldn't the bad guy be able to be opportunity attacked? That would put them in a more compromising situation. I allow forced opportunity attacks. And before anybody asks, if I push you away, I am allowed to then use my reaction to make a melee attack against you. Bad guys get this as well. So if my players have one of their allies down and they go to drag their ally away from that place in the combat, my bad guys have the opportunity to stab at that dead ally. For me, I've never had an issue with this, and My players love finding ways to be like, if we all stack up on this bad guy and I push them, then that's 3 extra attacks that will all go off against that bad guy. And to me, that's the goal as a GM, right? I'm trying to get my players to think tactically about where they are, and then also for it to be thematic and story-based. It also encourages my bad guys to be smarter and not allow a whole slew of heroes to end up right on top of them, because that could result in that sort of thing. And to me, that has always made the game fun. I am still very nervous. I thought that was a good explanation. I still feel like this is the one that a lot of people are going to disagree with me on, but that's where we are. But that's it. Those are my 5 homebrew rules that I use for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. Hopefully this is something that you really enjoyed. Have you heard of these rules before? Is this something you use in your game, or is this something that is all entirely new to you? Definitely, I would love to get a conversation going down in the comments, because I think that this is an area that is rife for discussion, particularly with 1D&D coming out. With that said, that's what we've got for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Do all the things that help support the channel, like subscribe, comment, like this video if you enjoyed it. Definitely share this video with a friend or GM or DM that you think would enjoy it. That is the #1 way that you can help support a small YouTube channel like this one. But that's all I have. So until next week, I'll be seeing you.